Hello, fellow deal makers. Welcome to another episode of the Deal Scout. I'm your hostess, Susan Reilly, and today we have a special guest. Please meet Keith Lewis. Hi, Keith. Welcome.
Hey, Susan, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so glad you're with us today. Um, you have a very, very interesting background. And I'm excited to share with our listeners today about you and what kind of got you to where you are in the world. And it started back in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. Is that right?
Yeah, Point Pleasant, New Jersey, down the shore.
Down on the shore. Is that northern New Jersey?
Slightly, yeah. It's not too far from New York, but it's definitely not right across the border. I'd say it's about an hour away, hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Did you spend a lot of time in the city when you were a kid?
I did not. My parents kept me, I was a New Jersey kid, so my parents kept me in and around New Jersey. Went to New York. It was very rare that I went to New York. I didn't go up to New York until I was in college, and then, of course, I wanted to be there all the time. But I spent all my childhood years in New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
Yeah, good, good. Well, your parents were real estate flippers, right? And did they do vacation rental flips?
Well, yeah, we talk about vacation rental flips now, and everybody goes immediately to Airbnb.
Mhm.
But my mom and dad would buy houses down the shore, and back then it would have been the early '80s to late '80s, 2 and 3 bedroom little houses that were walking distance to the beach. And every summer, my mom would rent them to family, friends, and people that she was referred to, and that was kind of our thing. That we went down there and worked on the houses. I remember my mom on the phone every time setting things up with people and, oh, go check out this restaurant, and the beach badges are up on the kitchen counter and all the bikes are in the garage, and that was basically my childhood.
Wow. That sounds like it'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, because we got to go there too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was at the beach a lot as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so with your parents being flippers like that, and investors, how many properties at a time did they own?
I think at any given time, my mom always owned about 3 of them. Of course, you know, big topic of conversation is my mom always tells me, when we see interest rates now, my mom will say, wow, I was paying 12% back then. And
Mhm.
everybody freaks out now over 5 or 6% interest rates. And both my mom and dad chuckle about that because, of course, homes were much, much cheaper back then. But, they were paying 12%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
things were a lot different. The homes were significantly cheaper than they are now. But as far as the fix and flip, it was still the same thing. My mom and dad would go in and make subtle light repairs,
Mhm.
stage the homes nicely so that people would just show up in a station wagon and a car of kids and enjoy the week.
Yeah, for sure. Well, do you think that experience and so buying these properties and cleaning them up somewhat and then getting them rented, do you think that that was what triggered you then to be more interested in being an entrepreneur and being an investor yourself?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Of course, my college years, I went to college for manufacturing engineering.
Okay.
So initially, coming out of college, I kind of wanted to forge my own path. So I started in corporate America. And shortly after having one of my first full-time jobs after college, kind of the itch got me again. And I wanted to go out and buy a property and flip it. So at the time, I lived in Atlanta, and that's what I did. I started flipping in the early 2000s.
Okay.
So it's kind of where I got my start.
In the Atlanta area. Wow. Okay. How did the 2008 era affect you as a real estate flipper?
Well, don't forget, I did the dual income thing. I was a sales engineer first for GE,
Mhm.
then I worked for an aerospace company. So I covered the entire Southeast, had a few very good friends that were contractors. So I would go out and find deals because that's always the crazy part about this. I always loved looking at real estate, always loved finding the deals and the thrill of the chase.
Mhm.
And I would buy a house and get my contractor buddies to fix them up, and I'd either fix them and rent them for a little while, or I'd fix them and flip them, and that's where I got to start. And then, that was all fine and dandy in the early 2000s, and by 2006, 2007, I had a little bit more volume. I still had my career, but when 2008 hit, I was in the middle of a $1 million plus build in downtown Atlanta, very close to Piedmont Park. We had knocked down a home. We were building a home, and I'll never forget. I got a call from a woman named Debbie at Fifth Third Bank, and she said, Keith, bring the keys back to me. We have a no recourse contract. If you fill out the contract and sign it, there'll be no recourse, no short sale, no foreclosure. Just bring me the keys and you can walk away.
Oh,
And I
wow.
said, I'm not doing it. And she said, why? I said, I'm almost done. I think I can sell it. She's like, Keith, you really want to do this? Why would you take that risk? And I said, Debbie, I'm literally finishing paint and landscaping. I said, why don't you just give me a try? Let's just try to sell. She said, Keith, you're not going to sell that. I was like, look, Debbie, just give me a month. And I'll never forget, we had the landscaping done. We had it on the market. And the real estate agent at the time basically said, you got one showing for the entire month. And I told her, like, look, do a price reduction, list it for $999.99, just under $1 million. And at the time, Debbie called me back. I said, Debbie, please, if you're going to let me do no recourse, turn the keys back, just give me a few more weeks. Let's just try this. The home's done. What do we have to lose? It's not a partially finished home. My guys finished it. And it took me about 60 days, but we got an offer, and I can't remember the sales price. I think it was like 970 or 980 or something like that. But I ended up selling it. So,
Wow. Wow.
it was a lucky day. I still made a little bit of money. Never had an issue with the bank. I could have done it anyway, non-recourse, but we stuck with it and we sold it. And, that was my first earth-shattering, scary moment in real estate. But I hope it was a testament to, fight it through. You got to keep it moving.
Right, right. How old were you at that point, you think?
Let's see. So probably about 35 or 36, I would guess.
Okay. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you weren't young, but you certainly weren't old either. But I mean, you
No.
weren't, no. Yeah. Well, that was that took a lot of courage, a lot of faith in yourself too.
I don't know. Was it courage? I'm not sure what it was.
Yeah.
It was just that, never say die. There has to be another way.
Mhm.
Let's look at this avenue. Let's look at that avenue. We just kept all the gears turning. And at that point, I just felt like, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The home was in a pristine location. It's
Mhm.
only a couple blocks from Piedmont Park. So, the old saying, location, 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 phenomenal location. It was a very fair price. Even for that time, when the market tanked, it was still a good price.
Mhm.
And, some of my friends that were building with me there that are subcontractors, I still talk to them till this day. And we still go back and look at it on LinkedIn or, excuse me, on Zillow and look at the property. And, we just all kind of laugh about it now because it was a
Sure.
crazy time.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do you think I used the word courage a minute ago, but do you think that courage was something that you developed on your own, or did you learn that from watching your parents with their investments, or did you learn it somewhere else, or where'd that
Uh,
come from?
I think it was just a level of commitment. I think as an engineer and don't forget, you've got to take yourself back and put yourself in those shoes back then. All the news was bad, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
The stock market was tanking, and I just felt like there were these little opportunities where everybody's not going bankrupt. Atlanta was still a booming market for the most part, with the exception of the stock market tanking. But I felt like we had a good product. I felt like of everything else that was on the market, we had one of the best properties around, and I just kept talking to real estate agents and my subcontractors, and I just collectively thought that we had a good story, and I wanted to keep the house on the market for a little longer. And Debbie let me keep it on the market, so I felt like there were still options, and there were still things that could be decided that would work in my benefit. So I kept fighting to keep it alive.
Well, so what I'm hearing is that when you're looking for for investments, you've said location, 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 which everybody says, but you also said you have to have a good product. And now, I mean, everybody says that too, but in this case, it sounds like it might be slightly not different, but a little bit more refined. I mean, your product was very specific right there by Piedmont Park. It was priced right when you bought it. It was priced right when you sold it. You did all this work to it. It was a good product. So those two things, but is there other things that you look for really in an investment besides those?
You know, it's an old adage, but I always keep the 2008 factor when I do my calculations now. When I look at our building costs, when I look at my exit strategies, I look at a potential fire sale like what we would have had in 2008. And when I'm pricing my properties and builds now, I'm always looking at worst case scenario. Well, what's worse than the worst case scenario? What if we did have another event like 2008 that was practically a black swan event? Could we rent it? Could we Airbnb it? Could we potentially fire sale it? And I always keep those things in my numbers to know that, hey, in the worst of the worst case scenarios, could we still fire sale this and make our money back? And that's how I always try to position myself, whether it's single family or multifamily. Of course, there's other options there that you can always rent or something like that, but there's other opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. When you're out there looking for potential investments, where are you finding them and how do you source them?
A lot of networking, knowing a lot of agents. People always say, people are always focused on the big off-market deals. And of course that's true. Having, a relationship with somebody or, I just did a property about 8 months ago that I picked up over COVID. That was a probate. Of course, that was totally off market. I was out running during COVID because we didn't have anything else to do, of course. But I kept seeing this house, and I stopped one day and I saw an older gentleman in the window, and I waved to him. I said, "Hey, I run by your house every day. Would you consider selling it?" And he's like, "I'm getting ready to move in with my son. Yeah, I'd really consider it." And I said, "I'll be right back." So I went home and got a contract, and I ended up buying that house. But not all deals are something that you drove by or something that a wholesaler gave you. You can't discount listings that are on MLS. If you're a savvy investor and you can get on MLS, I have a multitude of different terms I look for. Needs TLC, needs a roof, handyman special. Not only that, but just homes that were priced incorrectly that you can go back to and see that it's more or less been left for dead. They had on the market 6 months ago, priced really high. What if you call the seller back now? What if, there's 1,000 what ifs? What if they already moved? What if somebody passed away? You've got to talk to them that were on MLS. They're not pocket listings, and some of them are still in the market, but sometimes people's stories change and you might get a property for 100,000 less, 150,000 less. You don't know until you try it. So whether it's off market or on market, you've got to keep going and asking questions to find out, would you take this? There's hundreds of different scenarios. What if you let them live in the property while you're getting permits on it? What if they need to be able to stay there for 90 or 120 days? These are things that you have to take into account. So I don't think that big term off market listing, yeah, there's deals there, but just because it's on MLS doesn't mean that it's bad. I just looked at a house last week that was on MLS for one day. Somebody made a crazy low offer and somebody got a crazy deal on a house right here that's basically right in ground zero where we want to build all the time. And it's just looking for those deals, finding the deals. You got to stay on top of it, keep networking. There's a lot of real estate agents here that there's one I see every day when I get coffee. I see Jeff every single day when I'm getting coffee. What's going on, Jeff? Nothing, man. You're going to call me if you see something over here by Southern, right? Oh, yeah, man, of course. I'll call you. So, it's just keeping those relationships alive, right, and talking to a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, out of all your investments and everything that you've done with real estate and with over the years, what do you think has been the most surprising thing that's ever happened to you in business? I mean, in your investing.
Surprises come and go every day. I think you have to, especially in real estate, I don't think you can walk into any deals and turn key and find a deal with a ton of equity. I think you have to force it into the deal. There's a lot that I bought a year and a half ago. It'd been on MLS forever. It had several situations with the way it was platted. It was left for dead for a long time. And I basically went to the city, one of the gentlemen that I was working with on a deal, we went to the city and asked, can we put a duplex on it? No. Can we do a multifamily on it? No. What if we split it in half? Could we put it in thirds and build 3 houses on it? No. What if we split it in half and build a house on either end? Well, no. How are you going to get to the other end? At the other end, there was a road that had been closed when they put I-95 in. So I said, if we put a house on that lot, could we gain access to the lot from the road that used to be there? And the city engineer said, well, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. It's an opportunity,
Solution.
right? It's a solution. Another solution is, I didn't buy this lot. We were looking at a lot west of the airport. If you were to build multifamily on it, I believe the lot was 400 feet long, and nobody was buying it because we understood that one of the things you had to validate was emergency services. And because the lot was 400 feet long, you had to get a fire truck on the lot. Well, the lot was 60 feet wide, and the radius for a fire truck, the turnaround cul-de-sac, was like 68 feet. So the lot's not big enough to build the cul-de-sac. And what we did was we went in there, and I drew a couple pictures, and I literally drew a K as if we had a K turn rather than a cul-de-sac. And the fire chief said, yeah, I'll accept that. It's a solution, So, if you ever see my website or my LinkedIn, one of the things I always say is me and my team specialize at putting round pegs in square holes.
Right.
And that's why, you've got to find that deal. You look for those properties that everybody else left for dead. You've got to find a way to entitle them. You've got to find ways to monetize them better than they already were. And it's just throwing things at it and throwing ideas at it from over the years that we've all built up as a team and try to come up with solutions to make it work.
So speaking of your team, you have a team of people that are they employees? Are they investors of yours?
It's both. Nobody has a salary. There's usually equity in a deal, and it's a team of gentlemen that I've trusted for 30 years. So they're all my advisors. Some of them are still in corporate America. Some are general contractors. Some of them used to work for the building department. Some of them are professional athletes. So most of them are, gentlemen that have worked through professional real estate careers for their entire lives. And they're all on my team. Everybody that I can think of. I usually publish them when we do opportunities. I don't like to drop their names everywhere because some of them are still in corporate America.
Yeah. Does everybody have different skill sets?
100%, yeah.
And how does that work in your team?
I have everybody from general contractors to people that used to work in the city to people that work in large entitlement deals across the Southeast, entitling large tracts of land. They're the guys that are always good to have on your side because their ideas are things, that you've never heard of before. They come up with the most insane ideas to entitle property. So they're all good guys to know when, when the bullet hits the bone and you need a solution. They're all good guys to call. I even have somebody that's a former Raider. You played at Notre Dame. Tavon Coney, I can say his name. He's a great guy. He went to Notre Dame, played for the Raiders, has his own nonprofit. He lives here in West Palm Beach. I was introduced to him through another associate of ours. So, he's got his own mission. He's trying to do things for his nonprofit and wants to use our technology to eventually build a home for his nonprofit. So, it's just a well-rounded group of associates and advisors that are always here to help.
So it sounds like everybody has different skills, professionals, different skills, like you mentioned entitlements and somebody else's engineering and somebody else's worked with cities and the different skill sets there. Do you find you have different skill sets in personality styles as well?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Some are a little more aggressive than others, and we deal with that as we can. Surprisingly, some of them are a lot more laid back too. A lot of them have a lot more of a philosophical. I'll call Kevin and tell him I have a deal, and we'll discuss it. He'll be like, give me a day to mull it over. Whereas Charlie, I can call Charlie and be on and off the phone with him in 10 minutes because he's just try this, and call me back. So it's always broadcasting a problem to a group of individuals that are either going to be on a conference call with me or individually. and deal with their personalities and management styles differently.
Hmm. Yeah. So as a group, what would you say that one thing that maybe you haven't done as a group that you would like now I'm just talking about you, I'm not talking about everyone else, but what would you like to see your group do that you haven't done so far?
Even larger projects. I see some of the projects that are going on right now. I'm in Florida.
Hmm.
Some of the projects that are moving further up the eastern coastline. For example, this weekend, I took Saturday and Sunday. I live in West Palm Beach. I drove up to Jensen Beach. I drove up to Port St. Lucie. I drove up to Stewart. I drove up to Vero Beach and drove around for 2 days just looking at downtown, looking at if there were a larger community to go in there. Port St. Lucie and Stewart are already, I'll say, penetrated, are already more or less, in my opinion, overdeveloped by all the big developers. But there's spots in there where, I mean, this is Florida. You'll be driving along, and even off of A1A, down along where the waterfront is, there's sections on the East Coast between, Stewart and Vero Beach where you'll drive for 15 minutes and there's nothing,
Hmm.
you know? And where I live, land here in West Palm Beach for a building lot that's, 50 by 100 or so could be $1 million. And as you get up near Vero Beach or anywhere north of where we are now, 30, 45 minutes north of here, that are all popular communities, but you could buy an oceanfront lot for $1 million, you
Hmm.
know? So
Yeah.
these are all things that I'm always trying to find the best deals. Would I build in some of those communities yet? No, but maybe it's a good idea to start entitlements on a larger piece of property there if it's owner financed, or if the owner is willing to let me look at entitlements if somehow he's included in the purchase price. So these are all things that I'm looking at to look for larger tracts of land north of West Palm Beach and even in and around West Palm. There's so much happening here right now. There's a lot of developers in West Palm Beach that's called Wall Street South now. Vanderbilt's building a university in West Palm Beach. There's several large buildings in. The President of the United States happens to live here right now. So just the business in general in West Palm Beach, it's one of the most thriving real estate environments in the country right now. And as you go further north, I'm trying to leapfrog some of the cost constraints we have now for ordinary people that still want to move to Florida or still want to live on the water for a reasonable amount of money. So all those things are, just part of things that I'm working on.
Sure. Okay. Well, do you have a blueprint in your mind about how you decide to purchase a property? And can you share some of those ideas with
Yeah.
our audience? Yeah.
We have an internal decision-making system. Okay. So number one, I know it's been beat to hell, but it's location, location, location. Then we also want to be in an area where the average income is at or approximately $100,000. They've got to have access to at least three of what we call family location stores. That would be Starbucks, Publix, liquor stores, CVS, Walgreens, and then the developable land. Although I do like challenges, I don't like entitlement issues. For example, if it's in a flood zone or FEMA, so we walk away from things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then last but not least, you're still looking at ease of use and ease of development. So all those things come into our decision-making process. When we're building here east of I-95, you automatically get all six of those things. As you go further north, we don't get all six of those things, and that's why I spend so much time up there. I'm still trying to put all the blocks together. If we don't have it now, will we have it in 12 months? If we don't have it in 12 months, where will they have it? For example, Brightline, our local train, is going up the coast, and they're building a stop in Stewart, which is only 10 minutes away from one of the building locations I was looking at. So I would consider that a big attractor, a big driver. Yeah, you live 30 minutes from West Palm, but you can get on a train in 5 minutes and be in downtown West Palm in 15 minutes rather than taking your car. So
Right.
they're all big things that contribute to the decision-making process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mentioned Brightline. So looking for those more It's not subtle because everybody knows that bright line is adding a stop there. But I mean, those kinds of things really make the difference in as to whether you're going to invest in an area or not. Yeah. In addition to the other things that you mentioned, the income and those kinds of things. So
There's one metric that's it's kind of funny. BlackRock has a metric literally based on Starbucks. So some of their real estate dynamics are strictly built on how close they are to Starbucks. So we had to add that into ours and make a little bit of a twist. So they're close to our local Publix shopping chains and CVS, which all of them typically are. But as you get into more rural areas, it's not always that easy.
Yeah. And it is hard to know in the more rural areas if that really is going to be, maybe there's not a Starbucks there now, but whether they'll be there in 5 years, it's really hard to point that or pin that down. But if you have an indicator like the train getting a place in Stewart, or having a new destination or a stop, I should say, in Stewart, you know that there's going to be a Starbucks there.
Agreed.
Don't you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's really interesting. It sounds really fun. What would you say is your biggest business success that you've ever had?
It just keeps getting better. I'm building more and more and more. Right now, a lot of other funds are calling me because predominantly what we're building is sustainable, and it's sustainable by accident. Years ago, I say years ago, but prior to COVID, I was looking for cost reductions in building, and I found steel framing. And at the time, steel framing was more expensive, but now with the cost of concrete up and the cost of a lot of other materials are up, our steel framing is pretty much the same as any other building method, potentially even cheaper depending on what happens with tariffs on wood this year. So the interesting part is now I have a lot of people calling me that they're saying, hey, what you're doing is sustainable. And when I went into this, it wasn't to find a sustainable building method. It was to find something that was more cost effective. And it just so happens that steel, it's recycled. It's made in the United States. It's sustainable. We use magnesium oxide wallboard. It's significantly more sustainable than drywall. So a lot of the things we're putting into it are sustainable by default. So yeah, we can market a fully sustainable multifamily or single family property. But the interesting thing is now there's a huge opportunity for growth in this area because it's extremely cost effective. And above all, in Florida with our insurance here, to build out of this technology is going to yield the cheapest homeowners insurance out of any other building material. So yes, we want to do a multifamily up in Melbourne. And can we talk about this? Is this something we can talk about? Of course, so it's just opening doors for me that wouldn't have been open if I was just a regular builder building things out of wood and concrete block.
Yeah, nice. Okay, well, I want to turn the direction just a little bit because I want to ask you about you for a minute, a little bit more about you actually on your personal side. But what are you passionate about right now? What are you doing? I know you're passionate about your sustainable building. I know you're passionate about that, but what else are you passionate about in your life?
My family, I have a 13-year-old son. I spend a considerable amount of time with him. Every weekend we're doing something. So, he's number one in my world. It's why I do all this. So, it's just the greatest thing being a dad to a little boy, wide-eyed, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed every day. We're always looking to do something together, get into a project together. It's fun to give him tasks around construction and watch him. I had him at one of our jobs one day with a vacuum, just watching him do stuff like that. It's great watching him clean up a job site and work with me. It's completely enjoyable, and it's why I'm here, and it's why I do this.
Yeah, fun. I bet that is. That's great. Well, I'm sorry. Were you going to say something else?
No, thank you. It's awesome. It's, as you can see, I'm smitten. So it's,
oh yeah,
it's probably one of the greatest things I've ever done.
Yeah. Awesome. That's wonderful. Well, what have you not done in your personal life that you'd like to do?
Again, a lot of it streams around this. A lot of other little things that didn't make sense to me when I started this are amazing now. Another little one, an engineer explained to me when I started all this, again, I was looking engineer mind, structural rigidity, how can we make this faster? How can we make it cheaper? Trying to reduce costs. Oh, it may cost a little bit more, but it adds to the structural rigidity. And at the time, he said, oh yeah, magnesium oxide board, it's hypoallergenic. And at the time I was like, so what? What difference does that make? 3 years later, you look at how many kids have, allergies, how many adults have COPD, how many people have breathing issues, how many people have mold in their homes. And with these building products, you can't have mold. It's inert. Mold won't grow on magnesium oxide board. You can literally build a home that's hypoallergenic and never have issues with dust or mold or any other, contaminants in your air. So I stumbled into this backwards. A lot of people come into this because they're looking at the sustainability. I came into it because it was a better building product for me personally. And I thought it was just a better way to build. And that wasn't even including all the health aspects and the health benefits. I stumbled into the fact that it's sustainable. I stumbled into the fact that it's extremely healthy. So I came into it from the back end where now all these buzzwords, especially with California, after what happened in California with the fires, my phone lit up with people that wanted us to build in California. And I was like, I'm not licensed out there. I don't want to go there. I don't have time for it. But it just added another layer to our marketability because our homes have a 4-hour fire rating. So, just over and over and over again. Now, of course, I market a lot of the health aspects, but before it was looking at building a better mousetrap, and now not realizing it and understanding all the health benefits of the side of it being healthy, green, and sustainable. Now I'm like, wow, we're actually ticking all the boxes now.
I want to have you back on a different podcast and talk more about what you see there. And yeah, fellow deal makers, I invite you to reach out if you have questions for Keith or you want guidance on something he and I have discussed today. It's as easy as clicking on the link below or finding the link in the show notes. I'm always on the hunt for other guests like Keith, so where we can find more deals and scout more of them out in the world. If you'd like to appear on the Deal Scout or talk about your deals, I'd love to hear from you. So reach out to me at susan@thedealscout.com, or again, click the link below. Okay, this is Susan with the Deal Scout signing off.
Thank you, Susan.